Thank you, and thanks everybody for being here. Today I'm going to talk about obviously rocking your school visits. I'll start out with my background, a little bit about my books so you can get kind of an understanding of why I think they sell. Validation, which is really important if you want to get into schools and you're a complete unknown, no one knows who you are. Contacting schools, how you can make that work. The turning disadvantages into advantages, the presentation itself, what I do in my presentation, but I'm not asking by any means that you try to clone me. It's just to show you what I do, and then you can take your own skill set and then modify it if you understand kind of why it works. How I plan on changing the world and the creative spillover. So that's basically what I'm going to be talking about today. So let's go see if we can advance the first slide. Hey, there it is. So this is a complete spaghetti on the wall approach. I'm throwing everything out there. If you know what the term spaghetti on the wall means, it's basically to make sure pasta is done. You throw one noodle against the wall, and if it sticks, you know it's ready to eat. So I'm going to throw everything up there, and not everything is going to work for you, but there should be some things. We've got picture book people, middle grade people, and YAs, and also traditional and independently published authors. But there should be something within this hour that you can take and morph into your own and make it work. So just I'll throw it up there and take what works and feel free to morph it and change it into your own. This is a little bit about my background so you understand kind of where I'm coming from. I was the chief of the airport police in Grand Rapids, Michigan for 22 years. I worked there for 30, but I always had a creative passion, which showed up a little bit in my work. It was kind of my strength as an officer because I was the one really outside the box creative thinker and made a lot of things work. But I also have creative interests, which were photography and reverse perspective painting. I get home from work and I would write for an hour. On weekends, I would write. It was always my passion. So when I retired, I said, you know what? I don't want to go and be a police chief in some small burg somewhere. I want to just do creative, nothing else but creative full time. And it makes life really rewarding. And I don't have to worry about making money at it. It's all for pleasure. So I'm obviously with the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I have positive reviews from Writer's Digest magazine, Kirkus, and Midwest Book Review has a couple gold stickers on 2 of my books. This is where it all started for me. This is my grandma, and that's my sister and me with the baggy shorts and the knobby knees. That is when my passion for writing started right there. She planted the seed. I give her credit for it. She was from Germany originally, and instead of reading stories at night, she actually would make up stories. She had big sheets of black rectangular construction paper, and she would go through magazines and she would cut out anything she thought was interesting. Like someone sledding or canoeing, someone building a treehouse, maybe kids chasing puppies through a field, but she would go through and paste this in this big, thick book, and she would point to 2 or 3 pictures and she would make up a story on the fly while we sat there. So instead of reading books, she created the stories right there, which is really cool. As I got older, she moved in with us and she would insist on putting me to bed because that was our special time. She would give me 3 characters, usually animals, be like a rabbit, giraffe, and a duck, and she'd set up a scene, and I would create a new story for her every single night before I went to bed, and that was really wonderful. I can still see her sitting there just beaming as I created these stories out of the top of my head. I asked my sister later in life about this story creating, and she had no idea what I was talking about. So obviously it was just a connection that my grandmother and I had, some like genetics maybe, for creating stories. So I've kind of carried that my whole life. She taught me that story creating is magic. I have a couple magic tricks I do for the kids, but that's not real magic. That's more of a sleight of hand. I think we need to appreciate how great it is to be able to create stories. It's real magic. Think about it. You're creating a world in your own mind, and other people are able to get in there and look through the protagonist's eyes and journey this world with you, which is really pretty cool. And they can be affected by it. When you read a book, you read 3 chapters and you go about your day, the story kind of stays with you, right? If you watch a sitcom, it's gone as soon as you change the channel. So it's magical to create a world and other people are able to journey through it. I just think story creating is the best. Okay, we're going to get into school visits now. There's some pictures of some of the kids that I present to because I write middle grade. When I decided to do books, I decided, and this is kind of the way I approach life, I never try to be as good as anybody else. I always try to do better. So I thought, well, it's a trade paperback world. I'm going to do glossy hardcovers. I'm going to use the best paper. I'm going to have the best artwork and the best price per unit profit. I can make $9 on every single book I sell, which is pretty cool because then I can give them a deal. I can make $5 and give them a special price, and I'm still happy because I'm making a profit on every single book. So obviously for traditionally published authors, this isn't going that way, but if you make a name for yourself, maybe you want to independently publish next and take that $9. I put together my own dream team, a real editor with 30 years experience, a real proofer and typesetter, not me, an international printer that's located in Grand Rapids. The reason I picked them in Grand Rapids, not only because they're international and they're terrific, but it eliminates all my shipping costs. So instead of paying for shipping, I can drive over there, and I usually order 750 books at a time because that's how many will fit in the back of my SUV. So it totally works. I also have an amazing artist. So put together your dream team. Validation. If you're an unknown like I was, you're not going to get into schools if they don't know who you are. You're just a name on a computer screen. So you want some validation. So how do you get validation? Here's an example of validation. Look at those beautiful black shiny books of mine located above Hunger Games on a book rack in a bookstore. Well, someone would see that and they think I'm pretty hot stuff. When reality is, I know the woman who runs the gift shop at the airport, and I also read someplace that airport gift shops sell more books than any other gift shop or bookstore in the world. And that's because someone's getting on a plane, and if a kid says they want a book and they think it's going to keep them busy for an hour or two on an airplane, they're going to buy it. They're going to get the book. I'm also competing against maybe 5 or 6 other titles at this gift shop versus 600 or 6,000, where if you go in Schuler's, good luck finding my book. It took me about 15 minutes to find my own book, and all I saw was the spine. So this is validation where your book might hit on the rack. Now, to be honest, the downside of this gift shop is they take 50%. So I'm making dollars a book. So it doesn't make it much worth it that way as far as profit, but it is validation as far as a kid flying out of our airport and happens to see my book on the rack. Hey, he came to my school and spoke to me. Also, another way to get validation is book reviews. So Kirkus, which I consider the #1 book reviewer in the world, they chose my last book and said it was a recommended review. They put it in their magazine for October, which was cool. And they also put it on their 35 great indie books worth discovering list. Does that get me a lot of sales? It's in there with so many other books, I would say no. However, that's validation. I'm going to make sure I wave this banner and they see it when I go to schools so they know I'm the real deal. Another way is to have a website. So when the parents are wondering who this guy is that came to the school, they go to the website. Now, there's a different streams of thought with this. Some are you want to keep it simple, so they go in. I kind of go the other way. When they get in, I want them to have a lot of stuff to do. So it's real interactive. This is actually the one I have up now has a little more video, but I have video in there. You can read a blurb on the book, school presentations. I've even got my artwork in there. There's all kinds of things to do. I've got a 6-minute long theme song that goes with the books. So if the kids get in there, I want them to be able to search around and have a good time. Also, another way is to have a brochure. When I go to schools, I don't give these to the students, I give these to the teacher. Or if someone asks me about my presentation, I can give them one piece of paper that covers everything. This is a trifold, so you can kind of see where the folds are. So with this one piece of paper, I can give it to them and they'll know everything they need to know. So I've got teacher reviews on the left side, accredited book reviews from Kirkus, Writer's Digest magazine. So some real honorable people are saying some great things, and a little bit about myself. When you flip it over, it gives you all 3 hardcover books with a little blurb about each one. If you look to the lower bottom of the screen in the center, you can get all 3 books for $40, which is better than $54 if you paid full price. So that's kind of the carrot when you get in here, and I direct them to my website. I basically direct everybody to my website. Contacting schools. Can be kind of a toughie, and a lot of people, their journey ends right here because when they try to contact schools, they end up coming up empty. They send emails out, they make phone calls, and the schools don't know who you are, and they're busy, and everyone's trying to sell them something, so they don't even respond. So how do you get to do that? So it has to be grassroots. What I did is I thought about who do I know that works at a school. Most of us know teachers or principals or people like that. And I contacted a middle school principal, a friend of mine, who had just retired. And I sat down and went through my program, and she made the first phone call to a principal and vouched for me. This guy, I've known him my whole life. He's a great guy. He's got this good program. And I got in my first middle school. I got into middle school. Everything went really well. I had a great time. The kids had a great time. And the principal was thanking me when I was getting ready to leave. And then I said, who are your principal friends? Do you have other friends that are principals? And he said, yeah, I got a couple real good friends that are principals from this school and that school. And I said, would you mind letting them know that I'd been here and I did a good program? And he said, yeah, I'd be happy to. So that gave me 3 schools. So I hit these 3 schools. And then I thought, when I was a police chief, we would have monthly meetings with all the area chiefs, and we would sit down and go over things. I wonder if they do that with principals. So I asked, and he said, yeah, we get together with the local principals once a month. We have a meeting and we talk about different things, and we have different problems. Some people have solved them, some people haven't. I said, would you give me 5 to 7 minutes just to give a little spiel on the kind of things I do? And I got someone wanting to get, I'm going to admit them. There we go. So I got into this meeting. I gave them 7 minutes off the top. And what really worked well is the 3 principals who had me at their schools vouched for me and said how good it was and were kind of bubbly about it. And now I had more schools than I had time to get to just in the Grand Rapids area, but it was all through word of mouth. They trust what the other teachers tell them. They trust what the other principals tell them versus trying to do advertising. I've got to find my arrow. So when I'm going to school, I pick my dates. I never do a presentation on a Friday. I never do a presentation before like Halloween or Thanksgiving, Christmas, anything like that. Spring break would be deadly. The reason I don't do that is because I call it a 24-hour buzz, which I've noticed. After I give a presentation, the kids are all excited. They go home, they talk about the presentation, the magic tricks, and they want the book. If that goes more than 24 hours, they're on to something else. If I give a presentation on Friday and I put a Saturday and Sunday in between, half of those forms aren't coming back. They get lost in the backpack. The parent forgets to fill out the check. It doesn't come back. So I'll give a presentation on a Thursday maybe and come back and deliver books on a Friday, but I will never give a presentation where I can't be back there the next day to drop off books. Write something good. This seems a little bit obvious, but we have a lot of classes, a lot of instruction about how to write, tight writing and this and that. But really, the biggest crime with a middle school audience or any audience with the kids, whether it's picture book or YA, is don't be boring. If you're boring, that's a kiss of death with the kids. So you want them always to wonder what happens next. So you can take any one of my books and flip through and stick your finger in there anywhere. At any point in any 4 of my books, you're always going to be wondering what's going to happen next. And that is the key. I think that's 95% of it. The other 5% is making sure the commas and periods get in the right place. So Beneath and Beyond, that's my first book, is about 2 brothers that go swimming in a pond in a local farming community. And this pond is incredibly deep at the center. No one has ever touched bottom. And the younger brother, Tommy, tries to touch bottom on a dare, and he never comes up. The older brother, Brian, insists Tommy's still alive because he could hear silent echoes of his voice as he swam down after him. And in the middle of the night, a cool breeze blows through his open window and a haunting voice beckons him to return to the pond. Well, he can't resist, so he climbs out his open window and he lights up his father's tarnished yellow lantern and he starts walking through the wavy hayfields towards the pond, and he holds the lantern up over the surface of the water and he sees a faded image of his brother just beneath the surface, and he dives in after him. And that starts the beginning of the first book. Do you see how that makes you wonder what's going to happen next? In a big way. This is the back cover of the first book. All my books are fast moving and unpredictable with no dead spots. I never want that dead spot, that you coast through. It's like a roller coaster ride from one thing to the other. And also, it's kind of a teaser. The back cover correlates to the front. So when you look at the back cover of the book, the kids will know that this pond isn't a dead end, that it leads to someplace else, someplace cool. Here's some of the chapter artwork in book one. I have artwork at the beginning of every single chapter of every single one of my books. Not only is it a great memory cue for the kids to get in, and also it helps their imagination get churning as they're reading the book, it also helps sell the books because I pass them out during my presentation. So they're obviously flipping through the books and they see these pictures. So as they see these pictures, they get a little teaser about what the story's about. It makes them want to get the book because they want to find out what's going on in the picture. It helps sell the books. Plus, it's fun and I like artwork. Here's book two in the series. You see, there's a correlation between the boy and the beast. I wanted to take it to the next level. I never thought a second book should be a rehash of what happened in the first book. So if the characters didn't get wiser, stronger, or smarter from their experiences in the first book, they would never survive the second one. Here's some of the chapter artwork. Up in the upper left is Cassie, a very strong female character. She shows up in the third chapter and she is with us through all three books. You can see what the beasts look like and you can actually ride the beast into battle. These are teasers that makes the kids want to know what is going on with this beast. And arrow, there we go. Here's the third and final book in the series. I thought it should be a cataclysmic ending, like a train wreck where it teeters between complete disaster and complete victory. I'm going to run it right on that very edge until the end of the series and then bring it home. And that's how a third book, I feel, should be written. Here's some of the chapter artwork for the third book. You can see it's a frozen corkscrew tunnel going to the bottom of the pond. The guys on the right are called fountainheads. Don't you think that would be a wonderful hairdo to have everyone create during one of our seminars? I think that is just a great look that needs to happen. Here are all three books together. The artist for this book, Dan Sharp, he worked for Cutler and he's done like 70 different books. We sat down and I've known him since first grade. He said, I'll sit in board meetings and they talk about throwing all these bright colors at the books so they stand out on the bookshelf. He said, everybody does that and you're looking at a collage. He said, we'll do black and glossy and it'll look like a black dot from across the lobby. And he is absolutely right. Another thing that happened, I noticed, is when I sold the first book, if I hit like 40 book sales and I do like one grade, that was doing pretty good. As soon as I came out with the second book, all of a sudden it was in the 60s and 70s. When I had the third book come out, I was hitting sometimes over 100. I actually sold 147 books to one grade at one average size middle school. There were not 147 kids in that grade, but they were buying all three books because they want the series and they want them autographed. And the parents are writing checks for 35 bucks to get the set. So that's what happens. I also watched a seminar one time. A woman, she traveled nationally and she did a seminar on how to do school visits. And she talked all about it. She did like the whole auditorium. And I texted in, what about book sales? And she said, well, I'll bring 10 or 15 books with me. And that's when it occurred to me that maybe I'm doing some things right, because she was only doing 10 or 15. It's like, oh. I'm an indie in creative control. So this is a disadvantage being an indie because promotion is tough, but I try to use it to my advantage. I'm an outside the box kind of guy. So I look at what's been done. You have the normal plot, which is setup, rising action, climax, fall action, resolution, right? You get that curve. But is life that way, where you just have one problem that you go all the way through and try to solve, or is life more of a roller coaster ride? This is the kind of book I want to write. This is my plot line. I'm going to take you upside down. I'm going to spin you round and round. Your good guys are going to be bad guys. And which ride would you rather get on? That's the ride I'm going to take you on. So I actually graphed out the Ripley plot for Ripley Robinson and the Worm Charmer. So I thought, I want this to feel as real as possible. I want you looking through his eyes. So it's written first person and in the moment. So instead of he said, it's he says. It's unfolding right in front of you. And as he goes through his day, he starts his day, he's got a school life, right? And that's one dynamic. After school, he goes to wrestling practice. That's a completely different dynamic with he's competing with different people on the team. He's got a kid that he wants to beat. He gets home, his father is missing. He's in the military. That's another dynamic with his sister and trying to keep things under control. He's got a girl he likes. He doesn't know if she likes him. A girl that he isn't that crazy about does like him. He's got a public life. So all these things are going up and down simultaneously. And it certainly makes you wonder what's going to happen next, because he can have things go great at school and crash all the way down when he gets home. And that's basically how life is. So I thought I'd try writing a story the way life is. And to my pleasure, it works. So also having the freedom, I decided to do covers. I've got a black shiny cover, and then the one on the left is a book jacket where you get to see what the characters actually look like. So that's kind of fun for kids. When do you have a book jacket that is different than the cover? Another thing I did that I don't think anyone else would agree with or want to do if they were publishing my book is I thought, you're all in his head, and this is how I was as a kid. I'm an imaginative kind of guy. Someone could be talking to me and I could go off for a complete paragraph thinking about something else, or get on one thing that they said, drift off, and then they go, hello, Earth to New Kid. You can kind of see that in the center. I'm going to fade out that font and make it smaller. So anytime someone's trying to bring him back in, and when he fades out, you can tell he's tuning back in. I don't think it's ever been done, but having the ability to have fun like that, and the people who've read the book have all gotten it. No one said, what is that? They tend to get it. So getting into the presentation now, because I can hit the local schools, and because it works for me, I don't have to get on a plane or get in the car. I got enough schools just in Grand Rapids to keep me busy as long as I want to be busy. I also don't really do this. I don't have to do it to make money. So this is all my pleasure. So it's more pleasurable to hit all the schools around my area. I'll do the entire grade. I don't do an entire auditorium because it isn't as interactive. I would sell less books doing an entire auditorium full of every student than I would doing just 2 sixth grade classes. Because if I'm interactive, they get to know me, I engage them, we make up stories together. Those are the kids that want to buy the books. If I do an entire auditorium, I can't go back to that school for like 4 years because I've now hit off all those kids. So I'll do the 6th or 7th grade, whichever it is, every single year. And now I can keep going back to that school every year. And eventually, the way it is now, there's seniors who still have my book collection, and I've hit every single student in that class. So I do one grade and do the entire grade every year. I do a maximum of 60 students per class because I can't interact with them if there's more than 60. So as we're making up stories, I'm working with them as a team. We're creating stories. If I have more than that, it's not going to work. So I want it to be interactive. I would rather do eight or 9 classes than one big one, which is more time for me, but I enjoy doing it. So I'm good. I also will not do more than 3 per day because I start to lose it. I'm making up stories on the fly. I forget where I am. I get tongue tied, and it's not like a teacher teaching a class. It's more like doing theater and stand-up comedy. You have to be completely engaged 100% the entire hour, and you're asking someone to do 3 hours in a row. I know I can't hold that. I can't hit that 4th one. So I'll do 3 per day. 2 is great. That feels like a luxury. I'm usually really on with the second one. And if I get a lunch break in between, I can catch a breath. That's great. So I do a maximum of 3 a day. Get on the reading list. It's a good thing to ask. A lot of ELA teachers will have a reading list. Now think about it. If the kid already has a reading list with like 5 books on there, are they going to want to buy your book and have a 6th one for pleasure when they have 5 they have to read? So ask the teacher if you can get on the reading list if they have one. Now there's a bonus for them. They have a book they want to read. They aren't required to read. And they also get credit for it. It's a double bonus. They're going to ask for that book. So see if you can get on the reading list if it exists. Are the teachers into it? This is one of the toughest things there is. Is the teacher going to decide that's a good time to go to the conference room and have a smoke, or the teacher's lounge? Or are they going to take the day off and have a sub come in because they think they got a free day? Or are they going to grade papers because they figure they have a down hour? All those things will hurt you, because if they don't respect your process, the kids aren't either. The teacher is definitely the leader. So if I see a teacher waning a little bit, I engage them. I will ask them questions during my presentation. I will interact with them during the presentation to bring them in. I want them paying attention, so the kids do. If I have a sub, then I am full on in your face, Dave Strickland, and they're going to forget the teacher wasn't there. I'm going to really try to hold the whole thing the best I can. I never go in as a book salesman. You'll notice when I show up, my presentation is I'm not going in there saying, here's my book and this is how I wrote it and it's all about me. I'm going in there trying to give them something they don't already have, but I use my book as an example, kind of subliminally. Boy, that's hard to say. Subliminally, I can't believe I said that correctly. Subliminally, so they're getting sold on the book and kind of they don't even know what's happening. This is in my own mind, I always consider it shoveling coal. The more I shovel coal, the more I talk about my books, the more schools I get in, the more things that are out there, the more people I interact with on Facebook, it's like shoveling coal. The more coal I shovel, the faster that train moves that's promoting my book. The more I shovel, the train gets going faster and faster until it's screaming down the tracks and I put up a 147. If I stop shoveling, it won't stop right away, but it'll slow down until it comes to a screeching halt with something like we've had with COVID, right? So I'm going to have to do some heavy shoveling when we get back into the schools. So here's an example of me shoveling coal. This student, he goes to a school that I didn't even present at. He somehow got a hold of one of my books, and his father was a professor at Grand Valley, and emailed me and said, for school, he had to write a book review of his favorite book, and it happened to be my book. Would I like to see a copy of it? And he is very bright. Obviously, he's very astute. If you like my book, I mean, forget about it, right? So it was just terrific, and I was so impressed by it. It was the day before Christmas, and I emailed his father back, and I said, could I stop by and drop off a book? Mileage-wise, it wasn't too far away, and it would be kind of fun, and I'll give it to him as a Christmas present. So they didn't tell him I was coming. And if you do that, don't bring your beater, bring your nicest car so it's shiny, so you look like maybe you're somebody, you know, fool him. And I rolled up in my Jag, and he was completely surprised. He recognized me from the back of the book. Great kid. I had so much fun with him. They had me come in the house. He had to show me his Christmas tree and everything else. So I spent a little time with the family and had just a wonderful hour or so with them. And I gave him the book. Now, that's a really nice thing to do. And there's also a positive spinoff. You know, what you throw out there always comes back, it seems to. And he read Ripley and he loved it. And he wrote a great review, and his dad posted it on Amazon. It's the best review I have. When he goes to school, a school that I haven't been to, he's going to be talking about what? How the author came to his house, how the author gave him the book, and how good it was. And now I'm going to end up with more book sales from it. So it's shoveling coal. My presentation. And I decided to put together my presentation. And again, I don't want everyone to come out and be Dave clones, but I say, look at your skill set or what you're into. And I'm naturally, from little on, can make up stories on the fly. So that's kind of the direction I went. I decided not to give them the nuts and bolts of writing, just to maybe reinforce some of the things I thought were important with writing, but not get into commas and periods and that kind of stuff, but get into the creative part of it, the part I don't think they get enough of, and the passion and the fun of making up stories, so they could see the enjoyment and show them how easy it is to kind of create stories on the fly. So that was what I decided was going to be the heart and soul of my presentation. So I'm going to run through my presentation. It's going to be pretty quick. I'm actually not going to do the whole thing, but to give you an idea of where I go. I have my first visual aid, which is my favorite book, is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is written in 1911. This was my mother's 16th birthday present. This was my favorite book as a kid. And Robert Louis Stevenson, he's not in this room with us. He's not even in the same century with us, but you can get into a world that he created in his own mind from over 100 years ago. That's pretty amazing, right? You can get into that world. It's like telekinesis from another time. I want the kids to understand how important books are and how cool they are. I talk about don't judge a book by its movie. I have them raise their hands if they've ever walked out of a movie theater and they thought the book was better. And then I have them explain why the book was better. So kids can go, oh yeah, you get a lot more from the book than you do from the movie. You want to have the whole story. We talk about why people write. They throw up their hands as interactive. I think everyone who's here today understands why you write, or you wouldn't be doing it, so I won't get into that. Where do ideas come from? We talk about where ideas come from. And I want them to understand that as you go through life, experiences when you write, it's a lot richer. Something can happen to you, or someone can say something to you, or it could be to coffee with someone and they say something and they become little gems for you if you write, because you're going, that could work. So it makes life, I think, more important. So I give an example of a friend I went to coffee with, and she said, I moved in this big old house, Dave, and I think the house is haunted. I said, why do you think the house is haunted? She said, well, I have two dogs and a cat, and it was completely quiet in the living room, and there was a creak at the stairs, and all three of them turned and looked at the middle of the stairs. I said, well, that's kind of creepy. She said, no, that isn't the creepy part. The creepy part is there wasn't another sound in the house, and all three animals, their heads and eyes, tracked something invisible moving across the room. And I said, that's so cool. That's going in one of my books. So there, in my third book, there's a part where two animals see a floating specter go by before the people do. And I thought, what a great tell, because anyone who's animals, they're tuned into something you aren't. Their heads might perk up, and they hear something and it just gives you chills, right? But what a great tell. So when I tell this story to the kids, I'm telling them there's something cool in my third book where a floating specter goes by. So I'm telling them that, but I'm also tweaking my book. Also, I talk about hooking them right away. When you write a book, you want to hook them right away, right? So I read them the hook from my book as an example, and now I've hooked them. I give them story elements to reinforce some of the things the teachers teach. They love that when I reinforce things. They say, how come they listen to you and they didn't listen to me? They come up and they talk about it. So I know I'm getting through. Then we make up stories. And I start out with, given the situation, you say, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then you make it happen. Because the greater the pain, the greater the relief. The bigger jam that Katniss got in, the more rewarding it was when she got out of it. So if you're writing and you feel like you're adrift, just say, what's the worst thing that can happen, and have it happen. So I throw 4 pictures up here like this, and I have them start with the picture in the upper left-hand corner. And I say, here's the challenge. Do you think you can create a story without using characters or scenes from other books or movies? Because there's such a barrage of everything, they'll go right to something they saw on TV and stick the people in there. And I want it original. And I also don't say, here's the rule, because you're going to get some resistance. I say, here's the challenge. When I say challenge, then they're all in. So I say, can someone simply tell me how this boy got muddy feet? How did he get muddy feet? And then who can make it worse? He thought that's the worst that could happen. But then, whatever puzzle pieces they throw out, by show of hands, I stack it up, and I've never failed. I'm able to create a story on the fly by whatever they throw at me. And at the end, I let them paint me right in the corner, and then they've got to figure out how we're going to get out. In the lower right, I'll say, we're walking on the moon, and it's a beautiful day on the moon. He's walking, he's making sure he doesn't slip and fall in any craters. It's the greatest day. He turns and he looks back at the earth and he goes, this is the best day of my life. But then who can tell me what happens next? And so we stack it up, and there's aliens and flying saucers, and he's floating in space, and whatever they throw at me, we make up a story. But we've got to save the astronaut. I take the scuba diver then and the balloon story, and I say, who can combine these and make this into an interesting story? 2 very different obscure ideas. Now I got them really thinking, right? So how do you combine a scuba diver with a balloon? A lot of them will have someone rappelling off a balloon, doing extreme ballooning, a bird pops a balloon and it crashes into water. Anyway, we're all having fun, and I'm interacting with the entire class, and they feel, and they are actually making up a plot as we're standing there. Then I'll talk about creating a story. The reason I go into this is I think kids, and I was a kid once, they have an assignment to write something. They're going to want, if it's 1 page, they're going to want to sit down and write from the top of the page to the bottom and be done, which we know as writers is not the way it works. So I wanted them to understand it's like building a structure. When someone builds a house, they have the structure, but they still have to get the electrical, the plumbing, the roof, everything on. Your first draft is just that structure that you play with. And I reinforce writing and rewriting and reading your final draft out loud so you can understand if it is real. And the teachers tend to really like that because they know the kids like to just push along, and hopefully by the end they see that this is fun to create stories instead of a chore to write and rewrite, that it's a fun process. I talk about mentally putting yourself there. I think this is impressive because and important because kids tend to, if you haven't written, it tends to come out like a newspaper article. And if you don't want that to happen, you consider all your senses: taste, smell, hearing, touch, and sight. So let's say you're walking up to a waterfall. I say, would you taste anything? Maybe the mist. What would you smell? What would you hear? This is show of hands. Let's say you're barefoot. What is squishing between your toes? Mud. Or they're walking on the rocks, and I say, are the rocks sharp? Are they dull? Are they warm from the sun? Are they slippery with moss? Is the water cold? All these things help put the person in the moment. So as the kids are writing, instead of writing like a newspaper article, they think of these things to help put the reader there. And I talk about what's more important or what's more fun, watching the action or being in the action. If you're writing a story about a horse race, a kid might write who came in first, second, or third, and by how many lengths. Or would you rather be on the horse? Would you rather be the jockey? Put yourself into action every chance you get. Because if you're the jockey, the mud will be coming up and hitting you in the goggles, and the mane will be slapping in your face, and the rails will be going in by in a blur, and you're going to feel like you were there. And it's much more intriguing to read something that's action. So trying to give them the idea of the fun for writing, the kind of ways they can write to write well. Then we do this near the end, and this I can fly through. This, we create a story as a group, probably in about 7 minutes. And I do this pretty close to the end. So I'll just run through the list as they throw their hands up. And is it male or female, big, thin, tall, short, clothing, name or nickname, movement, speech, attitude? That's all on the left side. So after they go through that, we have a visual of this person. Then it gets real easy to go, what's their fondest dream? What would a person who looks like that really, really want the most? And then what's their darkest fears? If they want that so bad, what would interfere with that? The plot's starting to work, right? Give me a place on the planet that they live in, a dwelling that they live in. Give me a place. Now give me a problem that fits with the character and the place. And they give me the problem. And now we make it worse. We make it worse. And they give me a solution. In 7 minutes, we've got a story that they've been able to create. If there's time left, because I run it wire to wire, I don't answer questions at the end because it's, are you rich? And do you know J.K. Rowling? And those really don't help. So I usually, if I've got extra time, I'll run through word choice. I have them just give me different words for the word look, peered, so if they see the same word all the time, a bell should go off in their head that there's probably a better word for it. There's my granddaughter, Ruby, for surprise or flabbergasted. Isn't she cute? And there's my grandkids for the word run. I just threw them in for my own enjoyment. Word of mouth. When you're selling books, just like the teachers and principals, word of mouth is everything. It's worth 100 times what someone sees in an ad. So I'll give you an example of where word of mouth really hit for me. I was going in an 8th grade class, and I was going to give a presentation to 7th graders. So the 8th grade class was coming out. The 7th graders were going in. As I walked in, the 8th grader stood up and pointed at me and yelled, "There he is. I remember you. You were here last year. You're awesome. I read all 3 books and I love them. They were terrific. And did you know what? Remember those magic tricks he did?" And he said this as the 7th graders were coming in. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be ridiculous. So I gave my presentation and I called my wife and I said, this is going to be insane. I had an 8th grader, talk about how wonderful I am in front of an entire 7th grade classes that were coming in. It's going to be crazy. That was when I hit the 147, was an 8th grader recommending me. It can go the other way. You can put up donuts. So one reason for donuts, don't beat yourself up. You find out, and I shouldn't say donuts, but you don't sell what you think you should. You investigate a little bit, you find out all these forms went home and not a lot of them came back. Don't beat yourself up because maybe parents had to pay for the yearbook or the different uniform, or something else came up, but maybe the money isn't in that district. I went to one school and I didn't sell that many books, and she said, I want to show you something. And it was one of those deals where they had just sold the yearbook to all the parents. They just shelled out a lot of money, and now and the book fair had been there, right? So the kids had 3 books from the book fair, and now I come in. So they aren't giving them money for the books. And she had a yellow pad of paper and she said, look, there were 3 pages of signups to get the books when it came back in. And I said, I'm good. The kids want the books, I'm good. Another thing you got to watch out for, I call it poison the well. I've got a story that goes with this one too. I had given a presentation and I was doing the part with the boy with the muddy feet, right? And I said, okay, how did he get muddy feet? And this boy named Cody raised his hand. And he said, well, he hit someone over the head with a shovel, crushing his skull, and he dragged him into a muddy graveyard and he was digging a shallow pit to throw the body in. And I was like, we can't go Dexter. Does anyone else have any good ideas? And so people took it someplace else that worked. And the teacher was like, sigh of relief. And then Cody interrupted. My idea is better. He was upset. He had this great idea, he thought, and he was getting dissed and he was upset. Well, the second time he interrupted me, the student teacher grabbed it and pulled him right out of the class. So I finished my talk. I did my magic tricks and everything. I got all done, but I know he could poison the well and probably will. He's not happy with me. He's not happy with the process. This is stupid. And he's going to tell everybody and it's going to spread. And I could put up donuts with a kid like that. So when lunch break came, I went looking for Cody. And he was at a big round table with his buddies. And I went over and knelt down next to him. So it's him and I, eye contact. And I said, I'm sorry that you got taken out of the class today. I think you did have a really good idea, but do you understand why that's something we couldn't do? And he kind of nodded. And I said, I know you missed the end of it. And the end of it, I had some magic tricks and things. And he said, could you do the magic tricks for me? I said, sure. I mean, I'm on a lunch break, right? So I went and got my rope and my balloon. I did tricks for him right there at the table, in front of his table, and in front of the rest of the cafeteria. I got cheers and applause for me, and he was a hero all around. It helped reinforce everything. Now I got a buddy. When he sees me in the hallway, I'm getting fist bumps. He's quick slamming his locker to run over and have a conversation with me. I got a friend. I got someone who's in my corner, on my side, and has my back, versus someone poisoning the well. So not only is it the nice thing to do, when you do nice stuff, it tends to come back. Include your skill set for memory cues. So let's say you are good. I mean, all of us, because we're creative, we may also do clay pots or knit, or maybe we juggle, but everyone has some other skill set usually that they use. And I say, include your skill set, whatever it is. Maybe you wrote a book about fish. Bring in some shark teeth. Have some visuals that the kids can pass around, or something else to keep the thing flowing. So it's not just you talking the whole time. So what I do is I do some magic tricks. So I'll try to do those right now. What I tell them before I even get started is I say, I'm not a real magician. So if I see something that looks somewhat magical, please go ahead and clap, and I'll know that I actually pulled the trick off. Now I'm allowed to mess up. Now they're on my side. And I get applause at the end instead of them just staring. So that's kind of the angle that I use. So here is, I don't know if the chair's kind of in the way. So I do a rope trick. So I tie it into the writing process. I say, this is a rope. Like a story, ropes run smoothly from one end to the other. And you want them to make sense, right? Well, let's say your hero jumps on a horse and rides away from the bad guy at the school. But the reader's going to go, what's a horse doing tied up outside the school? That doesn't make any sense. But you can make anything work if you tie in something about horses into the middle of your story. You can say they raise horses. You can say they race horses. Maybe they've got a horse that likes to follow him to school. So to you, it looks like you clumsily went back and tied something about horses into the middle of your story. But in your write and rewrite, keep in mind, it's the first time for them going through it. Because for them, it's going to feel like a smooth story from beginning to end, just like this rope. Thank you. And I do a balloon trick. And I incorporate these in different spots. So I say, let's say you write a story and you have this great big bang ending, right? So you have this greatest big bang ending, but your reader doesn't care about the protagonist or the main character. If they don't care about the protagonist or the main character, they'll go right through your Big Bang ending, just like this needle going through the balloon, and they will not feel the Big Bang because you want them to feel the Big Bang, correct? So they must care about the protagonist. Put that away. Chair back. That was the magic portion of this presentation. Biggest thing of all, enjoy it. I have fun when I'm there, and kids understand honesty. They know I'm having a good time. If I'm having a good time and I'm honest and I say I'm not a real magician, I cannot fail. I could trip and fall on my face, trip over the wastebasket, make a complete fool of myself, and they're going to be with me. They're with me. They're falling down with me. They're enjoying it with me. I cannot do anything wrong. When I get a break, I don't go into the teacher's lounge. I'll pick a spot in the cafeteria. If there's two kids sitting alone, the two nerds, I go and I join them. I make them heroes for the day. Or I'll just pick a spot in the middle of a big long table because the kids will sit in the same place every single day. And they feel like they know me because they just had me for an hour, and you certainly get my personality as you're going through stories, right? And I have a deck of cards. I don't do like the boring tricks where you count out cards. I can do sleight of hand. So I can flip through the deck, just have them stick their finger in. I can tell them what card they're going to draw. So I'll play with that. I'll talk to the kids that are there, and then they start telling me fun stuff. Like the table over there, those are the Sportos. And this girl over here, and you know what so-and-so said? And I just have a blast eating like a Rice Krispie treat, listening to the kids talk. It also speaks volumes to them. Instead of being in a teacher's lounge with the other teachers, I would rather spend my time hanging out with them. And I think that means a lot to them. So enjoy your time there. They're going to know it. Also, you can see in this picture, they're so comfortable with me, the boy in the back decided to give me bunny ears. 24-hour buzz, we talked about that a little bit. Like I said, after you give a presentation, they'll have a 24-hour buzz. I want to get those forms back in 24 hours. So what's a good way to do that? So I have giveaways. I have a souvenir ink pen. It has my artwork from chapter 2 and book 1 wrapped around the barrel. I also have tattoos. If they put the tattoo on, which cost me like 5 cents a piece, they're advertising now for me as they walk through the school, and the ink pens. So as we're making up stories on the fly, if they give me a great answer, I'll give them an ink pen. If they give me an okay answer, they'll get tattoos. I try to keep it to 2, maybe 3 ink pens per presentation. Now it's human nature. After someone gets a pen or a tattoo, every single kid in that class wants a pen or a tattoo, right? That's the reward, and it's so cool. Can I see it? And they're nice pens. So I'll pass out my forms 10 minutes before the class is over because I don't want them trying to rush out the door. I'll say, we're going to take a pause now and throw your hand up if you'd like to order a book. That helps me now because it's real peer pressure. And if their friend throws their hand up, they also throw their hand up, and it kind of carries. And so more kids will grab forms than if it's in a stack by the door and they're trying to get to the next class. So 10 minutes before. I also say, if you want to purchase the books, the best way to get them is right now, today. Don't go to Schuler's, they're $17.99. I've got a special price for you. I will autograph every single book. I'll write whatever you want me to write in there. I'll tell you that you're the greatest kid that ever went to school. And if your forms come in tomorrow, any forms that come in tomorrow, I will throw in a souvenir tattoo and an ink pen with every single order. And when I did that, my orders almost doubled because the forms are coming back right away within that 24-hour buzz. The other thing I do, let's say a form does come in late. The parents didn't write the check. The student's upset. I wanted to get the ink pen and the tattoo, and now I can't. And guess what? I give them the pen and the tattoo also, and I a nice author guy. But I planned on doing that the whole time. Market analysis. I think selling a lot of books as an indie is pretty good market analysis. This is 1/3 of the books I sold in a 2-week period. That's when I was really shoveling a lot of coal. That's pretty good. You'd think an intelligent agent or editor would just go to the regional advisors from SCBWI and say, what indies are really hitting it out of the park? They're a known quantity. I'm a known quantity. I know the kids will like my book versus going through stacks of hundreds of query letters. So I'm still waiting for that day that there's some understanding that at Indy, you've got a real test and on as far as how a book's going to do. It's been established. It's a known quantity. Here's what my order form looks like. I had to realize that the order form isn't for the students because they've already seen you. They get the form because they want the book. You have to sell the parents. So this is what my order form looks like. At the top, I have the hook. It just tells what the story's about so they can see, yeah, this is something that would be interesting to read. The second part is the message, a positive message. Here it is, and this would be good for them to read because there's something they can learn from it. Who I am, who is this guy that's going to be in the school? How much are they? And then the carrot is at the bottom. Hey, if I fill out this form now, instead of going to the bookstore later, I can get all 3 books for 35 bucks instead of 54. They're all autographed. They're in a set. They want to read. I want them to read. They start writing checks for $35 each. What to sign? If you're going to sign books, please don't put best wishes, so-and-so. Come up with something kind of interesting. I put enjoy the journey, chase your dreams, enjoy the journey as you chase your dreams, best wishes with very few misses, best wishes and learn from your misses. With Ripley Robinson and the Worm Charmer, I have may your life be charmed, but come up with something to kind of go in there. When should I deliver books? I have a philosophy to that too. You want them to be in your head, or that you to be in their head as much as possible. So I show up at lunchtime. If I do a presentation to 7th graders, that's when I deliver books. I walk right through the middle of the cafeteria, rolling a box full of books, and they all see me and there's like, oh, I didn't get my form in, or oh, I want to get my book, or did you get one? And then I'm the topic of conversation as I go through. I wheeled a box of books through a cafeteria one time, and I went into the library and closed the door and started autographing all of them for the kids because I had all their forms. And a woman came in and she said, I had to meet you. And I said, why? And she said, I'm from the high school and I had heard about you. And she said, do you realize that the lunch monitors, the 2 lunch monitors, are guarding the door to the library to keep the kids out because they want to get in and they want to talk to you and they want to get their books and they're excited. And I just went, oh, that's just the greatest feeling in the world. I'm walking on clouds the rest of the day, feeling great. Who gets a free book? You don't want to give books away for nothing because it tells the students that they aren't worth anything. So you don't want to give away free book. But what I do is sometimes I miss signed books. Maybe the older brother, I had him the year before, he got book 1, and now the younger brother wants book 2, and I get used to doing all 3, and book 1, I shouldn't have signed it. So I will put those aside and I'll put one of my reviewer recommended stickers over the signature and they sit there. So if I get someone that's special and they can't get a book, I'll slide a free one. A story that goes with this, there's a little red-haired girl who had a speech impediment and she was terrific. And I was doing my presentation. She had a little bit of a stutter and she had to work to get it out. And she was fearless and her ideas were great. She was spot on and I was so proud of her. And everyone left the room. She waited till the last kid walked out of the room and she came up to me and said, I wanted to tell you, I really thought it was fun. I really enjoyed your presentation and I want to get your book, but I don't think my parents are going to let me because they don't have enough money. And I said, well, come see me tomorrow. We'll see what we can do. So I went to the office the next day and I had the forms and here was a baggie full of some crumpled dollar bills and some change with a note from her that said she was $1.75 short, but she would get the money to me later. Guess who's getting all 3 books? So she came and saw me. I pulled her off to the side. I said, this is going to be, you're in my secret because she can't tell everyone, right? Because then the books are worth nothing. You're going to get all 3 books. I'm going to autograph them. You're going to get you the pin and a tattoo, but it's between you and I. Can you do that? Yes. So I signed all 3 books. I gave her all 3 books. I got a hug so hard, I thought she was going to crack a rib. She's probably going to remember it for the rest of her life. And I thought, isn't it wonderful to be in a position where I can so easily, very little effort on my part, make someone's day? Isn't it fantastic to be in that position? And that hug and that appreciation from her that stuck with me for days. I just felt terrific and was so happy that I was in a position to so easily impact her. And so that's who gets a free book. Someone who comes to you, they're honest and they really love it, and then I sneak them one. And cost me almost nothing. So you can be someone's favorite author. When you go into school, you can take on the big names at that level, at ground level. You can take on the big names. So I went to 2 weeks later, there were some late orders that came in, and the teacher said, I want you to look at this board. Some of the kids had read the book. And she said, look, you're beating Suzanne Collins, Dr. Seuss, and Gary Schmidt. You're up there more than they are. And who's your all-time favorite author? And I thought, wow, on ground level, with boots on the ground, I can take on these big names. So don't feel intimidated. Feel like you can go on and take on anyone, person to person. Changing the world. This is how I intend to change the world. The problem with being independently published is promotion. So I talked to one of the librarians. She said, you're in our top 10 list for the entire year for books checked out. You're beating, I am number 4 in Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You're like at 5. And I thought, what's wrong with this world? I could never even get an agent to take a look at my manuscript, let alone being number 5. And I thought, well, if it was a real world where the actual target audience were making the decisions, I'd be in such great shape. I'd be in great shape. So I set up a website where the actual students are doing the reviews. And I'm a 98% beating almost everybody in the student reviews. So I set this up. It was all set to go at an entire middle school. They're going to run all their kids through this review program. And we set it up so the kids could learn about writing as they're doing the reviews, because we know as we review other people's work, we learn a lot from it. And then COVID hit. So this is on the shelf, but I plan on resurrecting it in the fall when I get back into school, so I can have students' reviews, and librarians or teachers from across the nation can go in and say, what do the kids want to read? Instead of someone staring out the window in New York, deciding what ones get awards, the actual target audience who don't want books to be boring, who want them to run from one thing to the other like a roller coaster ride, get to do the review, and I'll take anyone on if it's the target audience doing the picking. On the right is a True North book club with one of my buddies, Aaron Brown, set this up and asked me to be the author liaison. And I said, I would love to, because it's such a great program. This is where you can go to a school and give a talk, and the kids can check in with you just like a book club, but you're not limited on numbers, right? Because it's video. You're not limited on your area. This could go nationwide, where kids can go on and you go through like 3 chapters every month, and you can give them the ins and outs of it. Ripley Robinson is all life puzzle pieces that I've been through, so I have so much I can get into, and it would be enjoyable. So the True North Book Club is another way that indies, or even all these things work for traditional publishers or traditional authors too, can really work and get a wider audience. Here are my books. The artist for these books, a little bit out here for Dan Sharp, my friend since 2nd grade. He's done work for Disney, Hanna-Barbera, Scholastic, and Warner Brothers. So I can get top-notch people working for me. And when you look at the SCBWI, what a gold mine of talent that is there that you can tap into to create some of your stories and tie in with you. So who do I work with? Beachhead Publishing was basically my editor, but she's now retired, so that's not going to help you. Dan Sharp is my artist. He says he's only going to do artwork for me now, so that's not going to help you. Color House Graphics, they're located in Grand Rapids, and they are wonderful, and I promise you they put out a really good quality product. They also do Veggie Tales. They print stuff for people in Europe, and I have them right in Grand Rapids. And again, the advantage is I can drive over there and pick up the books and eliminate shipping. Vistaprint did my pens. I usually wait for a 50% off deal, and then I order hundreds of them. Ninth Moon out of Oregon did the brochures, and honestly, she did a terrific job. And this will be up for 30 days, I believe. If I'm going too fast, you'll be able to get back in and take a look at these things. Tattoo Manufacturing did the tattoos, and they're high quality. They will stick with you for 3 or 4 days. I had one girl, just the cutest little girl, put it right in the middle of her forehead. I thought, oh, I hope your mom isn't going to be mad at me when I get home. So embrace your creative spillover. This is kind of the final thing. I also do reverse perspective art. This is a 6-foot long reverse perspective painting. the canvas comes towards you, but it's painted as if it goes away from you, and it creates the illusion of movement. It looks like the doors open and close as you walk by. It looks like the towers turn, and it looks like the books kind of stretch and contort. So I was in Grand Rapids Art Prize, which is the largest attended art competition in the world, and I was a top 5 finalist. And then they had a post-prize competition where they pulled about 140 of us out, and I was in the art prize category, and I took first place. So how does that help me with writing? You wouldn't think it'd have anything to do with it, right? But I went through 9,000 vote for me bookmarks that I had printed up, and they all had my website on the back. And you understood I was a writer. I was also allowed to have a little posting about who I am. And obviously on there, I have my books on there and my website. So your creative spillover, and a lot of us have it, can be tied in one way or the other to your writing process. So go for it. This is my one of my last slides. On the right are my grandkids. Those are my incredible grandkids. And on the left, you see me making my scrapbook, just like my grandmother did. I'm going through magazines and cutting out pictures and putting them in the book, and they will pick out pictures, and we're making up stories on the fly, and I'm passing it along to the next generation. And again, the reason my presentation is what it is because I'm using my skill set. Your skill set could be completely different, but I'm saying just tap into what you do, what you're good at, and make sure you morph your presentation to work with that. So here is my website. It's blackwaterpond.com. And it's been said, and it's true, it would have been better if it was my name, but I had this on so many things printed up that I decided I was just going to have, if you type in my name, it will come up with this website. So that's where my website is, and strickland@gmail.com. I don't want to take any more of your day. If you have questions, I will take time and answer all of them the best I can. Just go to strickland@gmail.com. And also, this is the first video presentation I've ever given. So if I did something that could have been better or something I did right, kind of let me know that too. And it all helps when I try to do another presentation sometime. So hopefully I came across properly. I'm not used to doing this. And I really appreciate everyone being here. It means a lot to me that people care to hear what I have to say. So thank you very much. And yeah, if you want to unmute and say something, I'll chit chat for a while, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. That was marvelous.
Well, thank you.
It was great.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I would want to go to one of your school visits.
We have, well, I think the biggest thing is I'm having fun making up stories, and I think that bleeds off, and they're having fun. And I've had teachers say, you know, your most my student who is so hard to engage, you had them completely going. And then I know, or I'll see someone that when it starts, they aren't really with it, I'll focus on them. And that's my challenge then. My little challenge is to pull them out and get them involved in the creative process. So that is how I entertain myself as I do them. Again, every single class is going to be different because we're always making up different stories.
Yeah, David, that's a great comprehensive presentation. Just amazing. And also, I just love the way, like, you really look at how you're engaging those kids and individual kids. And if there's an issue, just being right there and responding with empathy and bringing the kids into it. It's amazing.